Easter weekend at Rockingham Speedway. 2 races, 1 day, 375 total laps at one of the trickiest tracks in the country. And at the center of all of it, a YouTube creator with 5 ARCA starts and 1 Truck Series race that ended in a crash after just 6 laps. That's the reality heading into this Saturday, and the entire NASCAR world is locked in. Garrett Mitchell, better known as Cleetus McFarland, is set to compete in a doubleheader at Rockingham Speedway. First in the ARCA Menards East 125 at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and then climbing straight into a Richard Childress Racing machine for the NASCAR Reilly Auto Parts Series race at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, which runs 250 laps. Add the ARCA race on top of that, and you're looking at 375 total laps before the sun goes down. This is not a cameo. This is not a one-off publicity stunt. This is a 3-race per year, 2-year deal with one of the most respected organizations in the sport. And the conversation surrounding it has been anything but quiet. Let's back up and establish exactly how a man with nearly 5 million YouTube subscribers and over 2 billion views ended up in an RCR number 33 Chevrolet. According to Mitchell, someone from the Richard Childress Racing side reached out to him first. The message was straightforward. They noticed he could use professional development as a driver and believed they could help build that. Mitchell laughed about it himself, openly admitting he absolutely needed the help. From there, a deal came together involving RCR, Tommy's Express Car Wash, and O'Reilly Auto Parts. The structure of the agreement includes starts at Rockingham Speedway, Daytona International Speedway, and Talladega Super Speedway, though the Talladega appearance is contingent on NASCAR's approval process, which we'll get to in a moment. His racing resume heading into this weekend reads as follows. 5 ARCA Menards Series national starts, including an 11th place finish at the Daytona season opener and 1 Craftsman Truck Series start, the 2026 season opener at Daytona, which ended with a solo wreck just 6 laps in. That Daytona truck result is the number his critics keep coming back to, and they have been coming back to it loudly for over a month. The backlash has been consistent, and it has come from multiple directions. NASCAR media members have questioned it. Podcast hosts have debated it. Social media has been running hot. And the core argument isn't really about Cleetus as a person. It's about whether NASCAR's eligibility process is working the way it should. Eric from Out of the Groove laid it out clearly this way. The criticism is mostly aimed at NASCAR's approval process, not at Mitchell as an individual. The question being raised is a legitimate one. Should someone with this little professional experience be jumping to NASCAR's second highest series level? To understand why the concern is valid, consider the case of Lee Pulliam. Pulliam is a veteran short track racer. Nearly everyone in the NASCAR garage will tell you the man can drive. He made his O'Reilly Auto Parts Series debut at Martinsville Speedway just last weekend. He was running top 5, fighting for the win, and then missed a shift and triggered a wreck involving a group of cars. If a driver with that level of short track experience can make a mistake like that in his first race at this level, the question of what happens when someone with even less experience is out there becomes very fair. Mitchell himself has already lived through a version of that scenario. At Charlotte, he was lined up on the front row in the outside lane. He spun the tires on the restart and caused a wreck. He's been open about how that felt. He said it was an awful feeling. Not because of the embarrassment, but because of knowing he had just ruined other people's races. Drivers who showed up, prepared, and had nothing to do with his mistake. So the criticism isn't manufactured. It comes from a real place. And Cleetus knows it. During a media call this week, Fox Sports reporter Bob Pockrass asked Mitchell directly whether he pays attention to what the critics are saying or blocks it all out. Mitchell didn't dodge the question. Bob, I think you know at this point that I'm pretty in tune with what's going on in the social media. This is my job. My job is probably more similar to yours than closer to the drivers. I'm a social media guy. That's how I got in this position. He was upfront about the fact that the Daytona truck crash hurt. Spinning out and crashing in your first truck series start with the whole world watching. That takes something out of you. He said he was feeling pretty down on himself after that one. But then he said something that has since spread across every NASCAR conversation that, at the end of the day, all these guys can say whatever they want about me. But if Richard Childress called them and said, "Hey, want to come drive our car?" all of them would have taken that opportunity, too. That's the statement. And it's hard to argue with the logic. When one of the most storied team owners in NASCAR history calls and offers you a seat, turning it down on principle is a very easy thing to say when the phone isn't ringing for you. He continued, "If NASCAR is going to let me do it, then here I am." So yes, it's reasonable to question that. But for me, I'm willing to embarrass myself time and time again. I just do not care. I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to put in the effort to make myself a reasonable competitor. And then, directly addressing the timeline. Once I get on that track on Saturday, it's up to me. So, they can complain as much as they like, but it's happening. They better buckle up. He also addressed the duration of the arrangement for anyone who still thinks this is temporary. This is a 3-race-per-year deal for 2 full years. Cleetus McFarland is not going anywhere. The critics have 2 years of Saturday afternoons to fill. Here's where the narrative shifts, because what Mitchell has done to prepare for this weekend is not what most people would expect from a content creator handed a race car. Approximately 2 months before his test day at Rockingham, he committed to his home racing simulator. Every single day, he was running laps in the O'Reilly car setup on the Rockingham track. Over those 2 months, the fastest lap time he could produce was around 2:40. That was his absolute ceiling. He said no matter how hard he tried, he could not go any quicker than that. Then came the actual test day at Rockingham with a full RCR operation. He ran over 250 laps that day. Danny Stockman, his crew chief, was present along with a complete crew. For people showed up whose sole job was to analyze data. There were laptops everywhere. A rolling toolbox was pulling live telemetry from the car while he was driving. Mitchell said he learned more about driving in that single day than he had accumulated across his entire life. The most important element of that test? Jesse loves driving data. Mitchell studied Love's data overlay and called it the single most helpful thing from the entire session. It showed him, in concrete numbers, exactly what faster looks like, specifically going into the corners, which is where he was losing the most. Jesse Love even came in person to help Mitchell work on the simulator before this week. That is a full NASCAR-caliber driver investing his own time in a YouTuber's development. On top of that, RCR arranged access to the Chevrolet simulator, a $10 million motion simulator that physically moves and mimics the real forces of a race car. That is the level of institutional support behind this program. Then Mitchell went home after the test day, got back on his personal simulator, and, as he has described in multiple interviews and on his own podcast, within 13 laps, he beat his old best time by 0.4 of a second. The lap time he had spent 2 full months trying to break, gone in 13 laps. The test day had fundamentally changed how he understood the car and the track. These are his personal simulator numbers, so external verification isn't possible, but they align directly with everything RCR has publicly stated about the coaching and data investment they have made in his development. And at a track like Rockingham, 0.4 of a second is not a minor gap. That is a meaningful jump. This is not just another race on the schedule. According to Jeff Gluck of The Athletic, this weekend carries consequences that go well beyond Saturday. This Rockingham race matters for him because he wants to be racing at Talladega as part of this deal with RCR, but NASCAR first has to approve him. This is not going to be a rubber stamp. Gluck explained that Mitchell was approved to compete in all Truck Series races, including Super Speedway events, which is how he got the Daytona truck start. But the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series has a separate approval structure. To race at a super speedway in the O'Reilly Series, a driver must first demonstrate competence at a short track or road course. Rockingham qualifies as a short track, and performing well enough here is what opens the door to Talladega. What exactly does NASCAR need to see? Gluck was specific about it. NASCAR said they're not looking for a certain finish here, but they need to see if he can handle himself. So, if he wrecks lap 6 again by himself, he's probably not getting approved for Talladega. It's not going to be, okay, yeah, go ahead. So this matters. A finish position isn't the benchmark. Competence and control are the benchmarks. The Talladega deal is real, but it is conditional, and the condition gets evaluated on Saturday. One piece of good news. Nick Sanchez and AM Racing withdrew late, leaving 38 cars for 38 available spots in the O'Reilly field. Mitchell is in the race without needing to qualify. One variable eliminated. Mitchell has been transparent about how differently he is approaching these two races. For the ARCA Menards Series East 125, the approach is aggressive. He has been confident after all the preparation work, and on his podcast, he said he believes he might be able to win the ARCA race given the preparation he has had going into it. After 5 national ARCA starts and the extensive simulator work, he knows this car and this track better than any previous race he has in. The O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race is an entirely different calculation. Mitchell has been clear-eyed about it. The skill gap between him and the drivers in that field is significant. His stated goal is to finish the race, stay out of everyone's way, and accumulate experience. Keep the car straight. Make smart decisions on restarts. Do not cause other people's problems. Survive and learn. Eric from Out of the Groove predicted Mitchell finishes around 25th place, approximately 2 laps down. He also said that outcome would represent a genuinely successful debut, and that a result like that would position Mitchell favorably for NASCAR's Talladega approval later this year. His ARCA teammate for the first race is George Siciliano, better known as LS George, or on YouTube as Squirrel McNutt. Siciliano made his own ARCA Menards Series East debut last weekend at Hickory Motor Speedway, recovering from an early off-track excursion to finish 13th. Rockingham is a very different test for him. There is a layer to this story that goes beyond race results and eligibility requirements, and it centers on a name that has meant a great deal to the NASCAR community since December 2025. Greg Biffle, former NASCAR icon, close friend of Mitchell's, died in a plane crash in December 2025, along with his wife, 2 children, and 3 others, in an accident in Statesville, North Carolina. The NASCAR community has rallied around the phrase, "Be like Biff," as a tribute to Biffle's competitive spirit, generosity, and love of life. Mitchell and the Rhett Jones Racing team are carrying that mantra into Rockingham. Mitchell spoke about it this week with visible weight. This whole process will be a lot more fun with Greg. I think about that a lot. I miss my buddy. He said Biffle would have known he wasn't ready for this level of competition, but he also said Biffle would have told him to do it anyway. Dale Earnhardt Jr. gave him the same advice. Take the chance when it's in front of you. That context doesn't change the facts of the weekend, but it does change the frame around it. This isn't just about building a brand or chasing clicks. There is real, personal meaning woven into what Mitchell is doing on Saturday. Step back from the individual story for a moment and consider what is actually happening here. Millions of people who had never paid attention to NASCAR, who knew it only as a vague cultural reference, are now watching race coverage, learning what the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series is, understanding what ARCA means, and discovering that this sport is data-heavy, technically complex, and demanding at every level. Even Brad Keselowski, a driver with 20 years of professional experience in the sport, still watches film throughout the week to stay competitive. Cleetus McFarland is functioning as a bridge between the YouTube audience and professional motorsport, and that bridge is drawing traffic in both directions. NASCAR gets exposure it cannot buy. Mitchell gets the most accelerated professional development program in the history of influencer racing. Whether the critics find that arrangement satisfying or not, the deal is the car is in the garage. The entry is confirmed. Once I get on that track on Saturday, it's up to me, Mitchell said. No one can save me but myself at this point. The ARCA Menards East 125 goes green at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, live on Flow Racking and the NASCAR channel. The NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race follows at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the CW and MRN radio. The critics have had their say for over a month. Now it's the track's turn.